Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. This is Miss Aisha Anwar from Biotic Academy. Hope you people are enjoying the lessons and the journey of learning with us. Please don't forget to subscribe and press the bell button to get the notification for the new videos. Today, my topic is nervous system in humans. What is nervous system and how it is working? Why we need to have a nervous system in order to behave like a normal human being. All bodily activities, voluntary and involuntary, are basically controlled by the nervous system. What is voluntary and involuntary? Voluntary and involuntary means that the actions which we are taking in order to react to our surrounding are basically the voluntary action most of the time. The actions in which the brain is involved to take the decision and to respond. An involuntary action, the brain is involved, but it is not in our conscious control, and they are also being controlled by the nervous system. What is nervous system? Nervous system is basically a system which is based on brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Now here you can see there are two major components of nervous system: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. These are the two systems which together help the body to respond to the stimuli and to react to the surrounding and to control the internal activity of the body. Now, the central nervous system is based on brain and spinal cord. Brain and spinal cord are basically the part of CNS. Now, spinal cord is basically the extension of the brain. This cord is basically help the body to coordinate and to take the stimuli towards the brain. With the help of this spinal cord, the stimuli which are coming from the posterior side of the body, they will reach to the brain. So, spinal cord is basically, you can say that it's an extension of the brain. Now, the second component of the nervous system is peripheral nervous system, which is basically based on the nerves. Nerves are the specialized cells of the nervous system, which are basically help the body to coordinate with the stimuli and to respond to the stimuli through the effectors. So, peripheral nervous system and CNS, the central nervous system, together they work in order to bring the change in the environment according to the stimuli. Now, along with these two components of the nervous system, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, there is one more system working in the body, that is basically the endocrine system. Endocrine system is basically the system of the glands. It secretes hormones in the blood, and these hormones are basically the chemical messengers. So body is basically depending on these two components, the endocrine system and the nervous system. These two systems together work in order to control the activity of the body. Endocrine system is basically controlling the internal system of the body and detect the change in the internal environment of the body and react accordingly. This system is basically having glands, which are the special organs present at different locations of the body, and these glands produce hormones which are basically chemical messengers. These hormones are dropped in the blood, they are secreted in the blood, and then they reach to their target organ by the help of the receptors they have. Now these hormones, they move along, they circulate along the blood and reach to the target organ by understanding or by identifying the signals, the receptors present on the target organ. These hormones reach to that particular organ and take the message towards that particular organ, which is the message which is basically sent by these glands. So this is the system which is working inside the body. Now if we compare about nervous system and the endocrine system, we will see that the nervous system and the endocrine system, if we compare them, if we contrast them, we will see these differences between them. In nervous system, the messages are sent in the form of the electrical impulse along the axons. Axons are basically the part of the neurons, nerves, which are basically the extension of the cells, and the messages are being sent through the electrical impulse through these axons, and they are going from one neuron to the another neuron in case of the nervous coordination. And in case of the hormonal coordination, as I have told you just, that it is the chemical messenger hormones which is basically dropped in the blood, and then along with the blood they circulate throughout the body and then finally reach to their target organ. Now in nervous system, information travels rapidly in millisecond. Nervous system is much more efficient with reference to the response with reference to the reaction to the stimuli, because here the speed of the nerve impulse is basically the mild electric current through which the messages are sent throughout the body. The speed of the nerve impulse is quite fast, but in case of hormonal coordination, the information travels very slowly, as the hormone has to travel along the blood throughout the body before reaching to the target organ. Now in a nervous system, in nervous coordination, information is directed to the specific receptor or one or few nerve fibers, glands or other cell. In this, the objective is very clear to the nerve impulse. Nerve impulse will take the information to the particular directed organ or the tissues where the changes has to be occurred, and where the brain wants to send information to that particular region of the body. This is done through the nervous coordination and it is very specific in its target. And in hormonal coordination, we can see that the speed is very slow. So before reaching to the targeted organ or targeted cell, it has to circulate through the body. And in nervous coordination, it gets response immediately. Immediately it will give the feedback, and in hormonal system, response are usually slow. And the last one is the effect is short-lived, means you will show the response to a particular stimuli and then quickly the condition gets over. The response which the body had shown gets over. It's a very short-lived response by the brain. And in case of hormonal coordination, we will see that the effects are generally more prolonged. It takes time for the body to recover from that particular situation. Now, if we talk about the pathway of this nervous coordination, we can see this, how this pathway takes place in the body. It starts with the stimuli and then receptors. Stimuli is any change in the surrounding, like light, temperature, pressure, or any chemical. And then the receptors are the sense organs: eye, nose, skin, tongue, ears. These are all the receptors. And then through the sensory nerve, the message is being taken to the coordinating system, that is CNS. And then the CNS will decide according to the stimuli what type of command should be given to the motor neurons in order to show the feedback by the body. And then the motor nerves will take the information or the command from the brain, and then it will go to the effector. Effectors could be muscles or it could be glands, and these muscles or the glands, which are basically acting as an effector in this situation, will show their response. This is how the coordination system basically works in the body. Now if we focus on the nervous coordination system, we will talk about the specialized cells that are neurons. There are basically three types of neurons in our body: sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. Sensory neuron, the function of sensory neuron is to take the impulse from the receptor to the brain. And now the motor neurons, it's their job to take the command from the brain to the effectors. Either it could be muscles or the glands. And the interneuron are the type of neuron which are specifically present in the spinal cord and brain, and they are nowhere in the body. They are basically present in the brain and the spinal cord, and they take the message from the sensory neuron, and then they send the command to the motor neuron. So they are basically coordinating between these two type of neurons. Now here you can see the structure of these three type of neurons: motor neurons, sensory neurons. There are some differences in between them. You can see there is a long axon, which is basically the extension of the specialized cells, which helps to send the nerve impulse at a very faster rate. And they have here like extension, which are called dendrites, through which the nerve impulse are basically gets in and then move away from this neuron to the next one. Sensory neuron, this is the sensory neuron. Here you can see the cell bodies present in between. And interneuron, you can see the difference that it is having these axons like structure at the end, and dendrite like structure at the end, and the cell bodies in between. And it has like axon in between like this. It is present only brain and spinal cord. You can see this is the structure and the labeling of the dendrites and the spinal cord, and how they work is basically they work nervous system basically based on the coordination or the action potential, which is basically the nerve impulse which created a mild electric current in the nervous system, and it is basically taking the message from one part of the body to the next part. Now if we talk about the messages, how they are conveyed between the neurons, we will use the term synapse. What is synapse? Synapse is basically a junction, a gap between the two neurons. Here you can see the axons, terminal, and the dendrites of the next neuron are not connected. There is a gap, a small gap between these two neurons, and these neurons are basically the point where the messages are being converted in the form of chemicals. And how the chemicals are working over here, we will see in this diagram that synapses are basically divided into two parts: the presynaptic axon terminal and the postsynaptic. In between the two neurons there is a gap. In this gap you will see this a neurotransmitter chemical. Now when the messages are coming from the body in the form of electrical impulse, they will come and they will hit these vesicles which are present at the end, near the end of these axons terminal and then these vesicles get hit by these nerve impulse and they go near to the membrane and they burst over there. These vesicles, synaptic vesicles, basically contain a chemical in them that is called neurotransmitter. They release their neurotransmitter between the gap between the two neurons. Now this neuron is called presynaptic axon terminal and this is called postsynaptic dendrite, means the axon terminal and the dendrites. The gap between these two neurons is basically filled with this neurotransmitter, which are basically the chemicals which will release from the synaptic vesicles and then they attach to the receptor protein which are present on the postsynaptic dendrite. They are basically the complementary shaped protein receptors, and these neurotransmitter will come and bind over here and then they will again produce the nerve impulse of the same frequency and then the journey continue, and this way the nerve impulse will move along the neuron from one neuron to the next neuron, and in this way they will make sure that the flow of nerve impulse is unidirectional, because in all the path through the nervous system, the one neuron will have the synaptic vesicles which contain neurotransmitter in them, and the other neuron will have the protein receptors. So this way the flow of nerve impulse will remain in a unidirectional manner, and the nerve impulse will move towards the brain in a unidirectional way. They cannot go back because there is no complementary receptor protein on this presynaptic axon terminal over here, so that ensure the one-way flow of nerve impulse. I hope you have understood the topic today, and the concept is quite clear. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. This is Miss Aisha from Biotic Academy. Take care.